Good morning. I'm going to be responding to Lucas's claim that we're failing to adequately enforce cyberbullying laws. His secondary claims mentioned over 50% of today's youth have experienced cyberbullying. Cyberbullying is on many platforms. Many parents are not aware of cyberbullying, and suicide rates have gone up from cyberbullying. Then we have an example of how these laws are not being enforced. My question is, how do we regulate individual character and morals? There are steps adults can take to ensure protection for their children from cyberbullies and internet predators. In my refutation, I'll be showing you how we, each and every individual, can make sure that the consequences for such behavior are adhered to. There's no doubt that we have a problem with bullying as well as cyberbullying. I don't think there's one person in this room that can claim that they haven't been bullied by another person. Social media has become a popular way for these bullies, predators, to hide behind a screen and torment others. Not to mention predators who thrive on these sites, enticing children with their schemes. In his secondary claims on the first one, which was the cyberbullying is on many platforms, Lucas mentioned cyberbullying on many platforms. Okay, sending mean messages or threats, spreading rumors via messages or texts, hacking into other people's accounts, sending damaging messages, pretending to be somebody else, catfishing, inappropriate pictures of a person, or circulating sexually suggestive pictures and messages. So as I continued to read his article, it went on to say that the activities carried out by perpetrators, as mentioned above, all have consequences according to bullyingstatistics.org, same website he used to get his information. Number one, they're subject to losing their online accounts and phones. Cyberbullies and their parents may face legal charges for cyberbullying. Mean comments made by teens reflects on them when applying for a job or if you want to attend college. Inappropriate pictures or sexting is a crime punishable by law as being registered as a sex offender. In the third claim, many parents are not aware of cyberbullying. Parents need to be their children's internet guardians. Cyberspace is another area where parents need to monitor activity to ensure that their child's not engaging in undesirable activities and is not a victim of online harassment or cybercrime. There are several software products on the market that monitor cyber activity, such as websites visited, applications used, instant messaging. These software products log keystrokes and perform periodic screen captures for a visual log of exactly what was on a PC at a given time, sending reports via email. My intent is not to shield children from the realities of the world or of the internet, but just as movies and video games ratings help determine age-appropriate content, I consider it an obligation as a parent to have an idea of what my children are doing on their computers and smartphones. According to a 2013 report by the Pew Research Center, half of the parents surveyed who have teens online have used parental controls or other means of blocking, filtering, or monitoring their child's online activities. Parents who monitor their kids' online activities are simply creating an electronic safety net, says Bob Lauder, founder of and CEO of eAgency Mobile Security. It's a Newport Beach-based company that developed MyMobile watchdog software for monitoring activity on mobile phones. It's not that kids and teens cannot be trusted, Lauder said. Children need help with their decision-making process. Sometimes they just can't quite make the right decision. Randy Closet, coordinator of online learning and professional development for the Orange County Department of Education, conducts training programs for teachers and parents on ways to keep kids safe online and ways to maintain a safe digital footprint. Knowing who their friends are is important, he said. Talk to your kids about which friends they're hanging out with. Educators suggest that parents talk to their children about the dangers of the internet, cyberbullying, and social media, and explain how to recognize predators and suspicious activity. We're handing these kids these devices and they don't understand the consequences because their brains aren't fully developed. The single most important thing for a parent is to know who is in their child's life and to know the moment a new person enters their life. In more than 80% of the cases that we've been involved in, if a parent had known, it wouldn't have gotten out of hand, Water said. Which brings me to my next claim on suicide rates have gone up from cyberbullying. The statistics on suicide according to CDC, the Centers of Disease and Control, on cyberbullying mentions victims, but also mentions perpetrators and bystanders who witness bullying and do nothing to help the victim, as well as mental illness, history of depression, easy access to lethal weapons, alcohol and drug abuse, exposure to previous suicidal behaviors by others, and family history of suicide. Finally, Lucas reported on a story of a Michelle Carter and Conrad Roy, connecting it to how cyberbullying laws are not effective. For the record, Michelle Carter was 17 and Conrad was 18. Their 3-year cyber relationship was via text messaging and telephone conversations. Dr. Peter R. Bregan, MD, is a Harvard-trained psychologist. Dr. Bregan has authored dozens of scientific articles and more than 20 books. As a medical legal expert, he has testified many times in malpractice, product liability, and criminal cases, often in relation to adverse drug effects. Michelle and Conrad had only met on 4 occasions, he claims. It was a dizzying digital world of teenage peers with a stunning lack of adult presence. These two wounded and distraught adolescents, 15 and 16 years old, would develop an on and off relationship, mostly without seeing each other, and dominated mostly by Conrad. That would overwhelm the two of them. Both of them would be taking antidepressant drugs, while displaying all the most serious adverse effects, including overall worsening of their condition, irritability, hostility, grandiosity, and suicide. Antidepressants not only increase the frequency of suicide, they commonly cause young people to become hostile, angry, emotionally unstable, and even manic. Antidepressants impair judgment and often can cause deterioration of overall conditions. In 2011, Conrad seriously overdosed on Tylenol in the first of his 4 attempts. Conrad's father explained to the police the first time Conrad attempted suicide, he was talking to a girl that he had met in a group, and she called the police right away. She saved his life. For the next 2 years, Conrad repeatedly threatened to kill himself while texting Michelle. Conrad repeatedly, For 10 days in July 2014, these threats combined with her antidepressants broke her down mentally. And she agreed to support his goal of dying quickly and easily go to heaven. Michelle lacked criminal intent. From approximately 10 days before Conrad died, she did break down and finally agreed to encourage Conrad to fulfill the ambition to die. In coming episodes of this story, we shall find that Conrad wanted and asked for help in ending the suffering and getting him to heaven. In her impaired state, Michelle thought she was helping him go to heaven. And in his equally impaired state, he thanked her in his suicide note for being so supportive and loving toward him. The above paragraph shows how antidepressants drugs effect could account entirely for Michelle's negative transformation in personality and behavior during the 10 days before Conrad's death. We have no factual evidence whatsoever that Michelle ever told Conrad to get back into the truck and die. Furthermore, we have many reasons to produce reasonable doubt, including alternative explanations for why she may have thought or written that she ordered him back in the truck. When Dr. Bregan was hired by the defense to review the case, he was shocked to learn that Michelle never texted Conrad to get back into the deadly truck environment. The DA based the case against Michelle on what the 17-year-old supposedly said to Conrad on the telephone in moments before he died. But there is no documentation of what the two said to each other. Let me repeat, there's no text, transcript, or recording that demonstrates Michelle ever said anything to Conrad about getting back into the truck and dying.
You're about to be at 10 minutes, so
Okay.
you are 4
All right.
minutes over already.
All right, that's what I thought, but there's so much to this story. I do, you know, if anyone would like to more know about the story, to go on Dr. Bregan's blog account. But the DA's prosecution of Michelle Carter illustrates a growing risk for the future of America in respect to freedom of speech and press, the rule of law and not people, the politicization of legal system, and the protection of big pharma's interests at the expense of parents, patients, families, and society. Thank you.
Good job. All right, well, at the start of the speech, you start to address issues concerning the different platforms and the kinds of bullying that could go on, and what some of the possible consequences are there. You suggest that there's software that could be used to address some of those issues. I think you've got an interesting set of counterclaims here that suggest that software and parental involvement are the primary ways in which we manage this kind of abuse, and I think that that makes reasonable sense. To deny certain things are occurring, it makes no sense, but the notion that they are unique or that they can't be managed the way other things have been managed, I think that's the good way to diminish this argument. But the last 4 minutes is spent on this one case that I think the advocate used pretty sparingly, and you went after it, and I appreciate the degree of depth that you found information on this particular point, but I don't think that was the main point that the advocate was talking about, and it really feels like it's superfluous to the question about whether or not we're doing sufficient things to protect people from cyberbullying online. There's an argument that in essence says that this example isn't cyberbullying, and I think you could have made that with 2 or 3 brief excerpts from the long article that you had and been done with it. It's not cyberbullying because they had an ongoing relationship. There is no text, no instant message that shows that she encouraged him to get back in the truck, and he was already under he had other depression issues to begin with. That's as much as you need to say about it. But we got a whole, basically we got the defense summary being presented here, and it just takes up a huge amount of time, and it's a distraction from what the main issues are. I think most people will have forgotten what the main issues are by the time you get to the end of this description, because it takes up 2/3 of the time that you're speaking, or at least the last third of it, substantially. So you're off on a tangent here, and that's problematic. You need to get back to the main point, which is whether or not we're adequately addressing the issues of cyberbullying. And like I said, I thought you were in better grounds earlier in the presentation. All right.